Have you ever had a close friend cross a line in your relationship? If so, what happened? I was dating a guy for about a month and told my best friend all about him and how much I liked him. My friend and I had tickets to a music festival, and the guy decided at the last minute he was going to come also because he liked some of the bands that were there. Went to the festival, had a great time, and got an Uber back to an Airbnb we had rented for the weekend. Walking in, the guy I was dating went to the room we were sleeping in to lay down. I go into the kitchen to get water, hear a guy yelling my name, walk into my best friend on top of him. Uncomfortable confrontation ensues. I don't ever comment on anything ever, so this is new for me. For that reason, I gave you the most condensed version I could while trying to have the story still make sense. This happened a year ago. My friend and I had been friends for 9 years. There were a lot of comments about the drinking, and I agree it is not her main issue, and all the drinking does is make her issues worse. My immediate reaction after I walked in the room because the guy was calling my name, asking for me to come help him, when I saw him on top of him was shocking, and I was instantly furious with the two of them. Also, they both had clothes on. I said something along the lines of, "I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm not okay with this. And I'm not sure how either of you think it is okay either." She immediately got off of him, mumbled, "I'm sorry," and retreated to her room and passed out. I started packing my stuff and said I was leaving because at that point I was so angry I was done with both of them. The guy talked to me for almost an hour afterwards, confused why I was mad at him, and eventually when I calmed down realized he didn't do anything wrong. She came into his room unsolicited and called for me to come back the moment it got out of hand. I didn't talk to her for months afterwards. She contacted me and asked why I was being distant. I explained what happened. She didn't remember it, or so she claimed. It's taken a long time, but we're still friends. I've created more distance between us. We don't hang out as much, and I know now she's someone I can't fully trust. As for me and the guy, we've been dating now for 10 months. A classic case of, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm also not going to stop you. A truly supportive friend. Story 2. I had one very close friend who was never exactly a laid-back guy because he was very ambitious. I think he saw himself destined for greater things, which was never a problem. I mean, I'm an Asperger's, and I know that I'm a bit different and strange sometimes as well, so we went through thick and thin together and helped each other through rough times. But then he decided to become a banker, and he became increasingly distanced. Then he became an employee of the German central bank, and that was when things really went downhill. I drove a couple of 100 kilometers on his birthday, hoping for a fun time. It was not. He had a party, and I felt completely out of place. From his old friends, only 2 were invited anyway, and the rest were his new fancy banker friends. Then we caught him making apologies to them for us, because we came in casual clothing, not in suits that cost half a month's salary, because we were laid back and were making jokes, because we told stories about our former adventures. Explained to them that he grew out of that and that he grew up, while we, apparently, would still need time to find our way. I felt embarrassed because apparently a nurse and geologist were beneath his dignity. Next time we met, he acted like nothing happened and was back to his old self. But after a quite relaxed time, he became a bit nervous and tried to get rid of us with all kinds of excuses. This was explained when one of his banker friends joined the scene. Apparently they wanted to go out for an evening in town, but we were not good enough anymore to stay around. So I directly asked him if he felt embarrassed for us. He looked away and said nothing. And that was the end of our friendship. Story 3. This was actually pretty recent. I had a friend who I was incredibly close with years ago. I was her witness at her wedding, my name is in her marriage certificate, and I'm the godmother of her firstborn, recognized through her church as such. I even saved her life by performing CPR on her until paramedics arrived, and paid for those hospital bills. That's close. After she got pregnant with her second son, she completely removed me from her life, deleted and blocked me on all social media, changed her number, and effectively disappeared, alienated me from our mutual friends and her family. I was worried something terrible had happened and had no way to find out if she was okay. I was in a very dark place in my life after a major spinal injury, and her just disappearing almost destroyed me. But I built my life back up and ended up in a very successful career. Met my now fiancé and finished my education. 2 years after all this, she contacted me again, apologizing for abandoning me and asking if we could rekindle our friendship, as she missed me and regrets destroying the only healthy friendship she had. I agreed, in terms that it would take some time to rebuild the trust we once had. Still haven't seen her face to face since before her disappearance, though not for lack of trying. Every plan we made for coffee dates or coming to my housewarming or my graduation or anything, she would either bail or flat out ghost me for several days after the event. When she begged to be a bridesmaid at my wedding, I caved and changed our entire setup to accommodate that, but She couldn't even show up to try on dresses or text me back about what she thought of the one I decided on. So I dropped her from the wedding. Cue very cool, very infrequent conversations with her. Until one night, she texts me asking if she could call me for some advice. It's midnight and a work night, but I agree. She goes on to tell me this wild and outrageous story of being emotionally and physically mistreated by not only her husband, but several of his family members as well. I'm not one to ever doubt things like this, so I talked her through it and helped her come up with an escape plan for herself and her children, helped her find a lawyer to contact, and gave her info for local mistreatment contacts. He plans to come and extract her and her sons to get them to a safe place the next day and called off work to do so. She ghosted me again. I didn't know her new address, so I could go and find her, but I was incredibly scared that something had happened if her supposedly cruel husband had found out somehow. A few days later, she texted me like nothing happened, being afraid she was stuck or acting out of fear. I tried to find out what was happening with the plans we had made, and she pretended that we had never spoken. Her husband was states away on a business trip, verified through social media, so that wasn't why. I investigated more and found out she lied. About everything. Her life was normal and fine. She wasn't being mistreated. She claimed police reports and convictions against the other family members that, through public record, I was able to find were completely false. She lied about every single bit of it to get my attention back on her. I don't even understand why. She wouldn't have to do anything like that to have my attention. If she just showed up to coffee dates, we could have still been friends. So I reached out to her family, let them know about what she had said, let them know I'm not in a place to help her, and told her I was unable to continue our friendship because of her erratic and selfish behavior. I cut all contact, and am now wary of being so available to help anyone. I feel terrible about it all, because if there's any chance anything she said is true, I may have just abandoned her. But from everything I've found, it isn't. This was only a few months ago, and I think about it every day. I still basically stalk her life through social media, looking for any signs she may need help, just in case. I don't have many close friends or family, and I've been abandoned many times myself, so I hate feeling like I'm doing the same thing. But I can't put my life on hold and neglect my job, my spouse, and my healthy relationships, or someone like that. Story 4. Finally, question I have an answer to. Basically, I had a friend through high school. Seemed like a pretty chill guy. A bit of a schmuck, but so was I, so I just went with it. Between my junior and senior years, though, I went through some pretty major lifestyle changes. Namely, not being a schmuck to everyone I met. He, however, did not. The thing that really ended that friendship for me, though, was when he faked being depressed in an attempt to get one of our mutual friends, now my girlfriend, to date him. It was honestly one of the cruelest things I've seen a person do in an attempt to get with a girl. Somehow, though, that wasn't enough. And he still borderline stalks her to this day. Creepy as hell. I wish I had drawn the line a little sooner. Live and learn, I guess. Story 5. I had a friend who would occasionally make comments that would make me uncomfortable regarding my appearance and my smile and things. Then increasingly over time, with alcohol and weed involved, he would start making inappropriate comments. He would purposely get me and when I was almost sleeping, say things like, "Oh no, don't fall asleep. Why don't we just tug each other off?" Kind of found it hard to believe because he had never mentioned being not straight or anything like that, although he made a lot of inappropriate jokes. I put that and the few incidents that followed down to him just being intoxicated. And one night he brought round poppers that he'd apparently found and just came right out and asked me to whistle him when we were intoxicated. I've not been sure what to do about it since. This was months ago now, but I'm still not sure if I could ever be friends with the dude and have a drink with him again. Story 6. Got him a job in my company so he could move to the city his girlfriend is in. Then he started going after my position. Friendship over. Don't work with friends. My wife did something similar. Helped a struggling friend get a job at her office. Fast forward about 3 years or so, and now that friend thinks she's a big shot. My wife will be discussing treatment with her patient, and she will listen in, and after my wife dismisses them, she comes and tells my wife what she should have done. My wife has been in the field almost 10 years. Typically his only patients that request her, has been one of the only people to get a raise during supposed pay freezes. The patients in work love my wife, but her friend is jealous, so tries to talk down to her. It wouldn't be so bad, but me and my wife are both generally over-the-top nice and do all we can to upset anyone or cause confrontation. So all this just stews with my wife and drains her a little because then she second-guesses how well she's actually doing her job. Sometimes, the best way to deal with a backstabbing friend is to just let karma do its thing. Story 7. I had this super close friend. We studied at uni for 1 year until I switched to universities to study something else. However, we stayed in touch for a long time after because we were so close. I was one of the few brown or Muslim kids, and she was an inner city girl, so she wasn't awkward around me. unlike most people in uni were or are. I even had a crush on her, but she didn't feel the same way. But we were so close that didn't matter and we stayed good friends. Helped her through a breakup with her boyfriend. Like a month later, she blocks me on Facebook. Stops responding to any and all messages or calls, etc. Never heard from her again in like 2 years as well. Then I get a message asking how I'm doing. I ask her what happened. Turns out she had a new boyfriend who was super prejudiced and didn't want her hanging out with me or even being Facebook friends with me. He literally went through her Facebook account and deleted or blocked all the brown or black people. A few awkward conversations later, I'm a bit indifferent towards her, but I wouldn't mind hanging out for old time's sake. Plans never got made, but we talked from time to time, and then she blocked me again. I didn't bother for a month or two. Got busy myself. But after I urged a mutual friend to ask her what was up, it turns out she got into a same-gender relationship, and her girlfriend didn't like Muslims because Muslims hate people who are not straight. I gave up after that. Last I heard, they got married, and I'm happy for her, but she's out of my life for good. Honestly, if I ever saw her again, I'd probably just ignore her. Story 8. In college, I, female, was friends with a guy who could be straight out of r/nice guys. He was very unsuccessful with women because of a lack of social skills and no self-awareness. I know that this really bothered him, and I would try to help him out, give him advice, etc. Never actually took my advice and kept repeating the same mistakes, which got progressively more annoying. But there were times that a date would stand him up, which is a really terrible thing to do. Or girls would be mean to him on dating apps, so I really did feel bad and try my best to help. I know he was romantically interested in me, but I didn't have those feelings for him. Eventually, because he was bitter about my comparative success in the romance department, he made some really cruel and inappropriate personal attacks over text. That's where I drew the line. I told him that was hurtful and inappropriate, and a day later, I blocked him. I haven't talked to him since. Story 9. He told me Pepsi was crap, so I said his Arizona tea was crap. Very, very dark times indeed. Actually, I think I'm going to tell him his new shoes are lame and see what he comes up with in a bit. Jokes aside, the boundary a friend crossed was when she was dating someone and I woke up one morning, Central Time. She lived in the UK, so it was like 2 p.m. for her. So a bunch of photos of her in Discord. I was in awe at first because I'm a sly boy, but after a few seconds, I came to my senses. I thought to myself, what the hell? And started asking her as to why she did it. She had no particular reason, other than she thought it would be fun to do it behind her boyfriend's back, which quite frankly upset me greatly as I had a crush on her. I talked to her for hours after that, but she was keen on not apologizing, so I screenshot her chat, emailed her boyfriend, and let him deal with her in person. I refused to talk to her after that, even despite her efforts to make a couple accounts to annoy me. Hell, she even posted my private Discord, Skype, and Steam names and the internet after the whole ordeal, if that gives you any extra perspective of the kind of person she really was. Story 10. She told me, on my birthday, that she had been mad about me for months and then 3 days later slept with my boss. We're no longer friends and I'm no longer employed. Complicated situation. Not long before this, I caught my housemate, who I also worked with, going through my social media. Saw him walking out of my room when I got in from a run. Thought it was weird, so I set up a screen recording software. Lo and behold, he was reading everything and had the audacity to call me paranoid when I questioned him about it. I've moved back in with the folks since. So I guess you can call those two lines crossed by people who are supposed to be friends. If there's a lesson here, it's to keep your personal life and work life separate. I quit at a bad time due to my declining mental health, which was exacerbated by the aforementioned. Been a rough couple of months. Being constructive about it all, I picked up Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I'd seriously recommend it to anyone down in their luck, as it's definitely adding a scientific or psychological context to why I feel so low right now. The steps I can take to regain control of my life. Story 11. Kind of a flip on the question, but I had a close friend. We were best friends. From 5th grade to junior year of high school. Had this huge crush on this girl named Jessica. Jessica and I talked and were pretty decent friends, and one day we went to the movies together and she came over to my house after the movie. Mind you, for at least 5 months, Jessica knew that my best friend, Jake, liked her and wanted to be with her. So she manipulated him, was dragging him on. No sooner than 5 minutes after getting home from the movies, she jumped me, and in my teenage hormone-fueled ways, we slept together. Literally the next day, she told Jake. But I honestly didn't think there would be an issue since he wasn't with her, but he just liked her. Within the month, I lost him, my group of friends, and my sanity. I was already super depressed after going through a super crappy off-and-on relationship, and this was the icing on the cake. I've tried to reach out to him to apologize, but he never replies. I haven't tried in 2 years now. I miss him and my friends, but I don't miss being a teenager. Story 12.
Not sure if this falls under that, but my best childhood friend did something pretty bad to someone else in high school, and that led to me blowing up my circle of friends. There was a girl. She came from a broken, cruel, everything is fine on the surface, rich family. She had some problems with depression and PTSD. She had also been mistreated by an ex-boyfriend who's not otherwise part of the story. So this girl made a new friend in high school. She'll call this friend POS. POS was a good friend of my best friend. I'd hung out with him a few times, but we were just a friend of a friend to each other. The girl came to trust POS, and eventually, she told him all her dark secrets and pains and regrets. POS pretended to offer her support, then turned around and told his friends all her secrets because he enjoyed gossiping and being the center of attention. He also told them not to let it get back to her because then she would stop telling him secrets. One of the people he told was my best friend, and he told me. And that wasn't right. I told the girl everything I knew. Me, some random guy she had met only once before, knowing intimate details about her horrible family life. The stuff about her ex, everything. She was obviously horrified and felt very betrayed by POS, so she confronted him very loudly and publicly. The most drama I've ever heard of in real life. A lot of people already knew her secret, so I guess she felt she didn't have much to lose. Anyway, POS went into damage control mode and tried to spin it as me manipulating the girl to get into her pants and only making her think I knew all those things. Some people believed him. Some believed her. My best friend felt that I had betrayed him and sided with POS. This also made it hard to get along when we met up in the same circle of friends. So the end result was my circle of friends somewhat breaking up in the last semester of high school. I missed my formerly best friend for a while. I've never found anyone else with a sense of humor so similar to mine. But ultimately, I couldn't have not told the girl what was happening, and the fact that my friend treated it as just juicy gossip. Guess he wasn't a very good person. I'm not perfect myself, and I certainly regret the price I had to pay for that story, but I did the right thing. If I could go back, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't be mad if I had stood by and let that continue. Story 13. I was friends with this girl, call her Anne, in high school. We were on the cheerleading squad together. Sleepovers, all that stuff. Another girl in our squad, Kat, had been friends with Anne since childhood. I didn't much care for Kat. I was not mean or anything, and neither was she. We just didn't interact much. New Year's Eve, we were all at this party. For the first time ever, we didn't have to be a designated driver because Anne had recently broken up with her boyfriend and said she wouldn't be drinking. I come to find Anne and she's plastered, laughing with a group of people. She tells me what's so funny. Kat's boyfriend videotaped them having intimacy and was going to show it. I had a what the hell moment. That's your friend. And just felt sick to my stomach. Luckily, I had noticed her drinking and stopped early on. I played designated driver and took everyone home. The next day, everyone was talking about the tape and Kat still didn't know. I couldn't handle it. I thought it was so wrong on so many levels. I went to tell Kat, which I have to say must have been great for her, being told that by a non-friend, and who you consider your best friend is participating in ruining your reputation. It just showed my friend's character. I just couldn't look at her with any respect after that. I let the friendship fizzle. It was the end of senior year. She married her stalker ex-boyfriend that summer. I saw her at the next year's homecoming game, Preggers. We're still Facebook friends, and she's tried to reach out a couple times, but to me, that event tainted her for me, and I just can't. Just don't get what benefit people like that get. Well, that's one way to start a new year. Story 14. I had a friend in high school. We're both female, who I had like 6 to 8 classes with during our sophomore year. During lunch, instead of sitting with her and our other friends, I sat with my guy friend, or FWB. She started getting mad and not talking to me, just straight up being mean. My other friend told me it was because I sat with this guy during lunch instead of her. Now, granted, the guy was a giant schmuck who I now don't have contact with, but she wasn't trying to save me from a bad relationship. It was extremely jealous. She took to talking about me behind my back, even making nicknames for me so she could talk crap about me. I honestly just stopped talking to her for a while. Eventually, she stopped her crap, but our friendship was never really the same. Turns out, once we graduate, that she's gay. And that makes sense. Because of that incident and because she was always trying to find a way to touch me. Not intimately or anything, but playing with my hair or putting a shoulder on me or just randomly touching me as she went by. I don't know if she had a crush on me or was just discovering who she was at that time, but the whole situation just clicked several years later. We're friends again, but she now lives in the UK where she went to live with her girlfriend or fiancé, so, it all worked out. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. He refused to get help. He's been dealing with mental health issues and I always tried to be there for him in any way possible. Always had him over when he needed. Fed him when he had no food. looked past his situation to offer help for years. He tried to end his life a couple years back. Went on psych hold for a few days, came back, acted like it never happened. A year later, he kicked out his then girlfriend because it wasn't fair for her to deal with his problems by texting about 8 other girls. Again, I still looked past everything because she was my friend and had no one else but me. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. He's texting his ex, whom she and I have become close due to always having to deal with this dude's issues. Tells her he's out looking for a nice view to go out the way he previously tried to go out. Reaching out to him, trying to keep him calm and talking through whatever. Finally decided to get his family involved because he was a danger to himself. Turns out he was just messing with us and never even left the house. So he comes over to talk, throws a fit because no one came to see him or talk to him. When he clearly decided not to respond to whatever was said, had the chance to do a 30-day inpatient program but declined it repeatedly because he said, "I don't think it's going to work." He's not a medication. He uses grass, no respect for the plant, and swears up and down that it won't help him. Managed to talk him into considering the program. He leaves in a happier mood. Tells me he's going to call and see what he needs to do. Next day, I asked how it went. He said, "I'm not going to go. I'm just going to work." I then decided to distance myself for a little while. I get a text next day. "Hey man, I'm doing better. Want to hang out?" I don't feel great due to stress with all of this, so I say I'm busy, but offer to hang out the following day. He rejects the offer. A few days later, asks to hang out again. I had a cold, told him my plate was full, and he told me no problem. A few minutes later, he throws a fit by telling me, "I'll end up just like everyone else and get what you want from me, and I'll never see you again." All because I told him I was busy. At that moment, I realized everything I've ever looked past has been a mistake on my part. He's stolen from me. Only used me for my resources. He's made a pass on an ex of mine, which I didn't find out until a year after the relationship ended. Constantly cheated on his ex for my friend, and now recently started stealing from his sister and niece. That's just naming a few. 10 plus years of friendship down the drain. Story 16. I was in a cruel relationship for 2 years, and in the meantime, I had a strange friendship with a guy who knew my boyfriend at the time. We'll call him Charlie. Charlie would drive to my house and pick me up, and we'd go to the park or something. My cruel boyfriend at the time was probably screwing around with some other girl at the time, so he ghosted sometimes, and so did I. Charlie had a girlfriend too, and he would even take me to pick her up too. Obviously that's weird, but she didn't even seem to mind. I didn't have feelings for Charlie, and to this day, I'm unsure he had feelings for me. Why do I say that? Because Charlie would take me to church just so I could be with my now fiancé. Charlie also would take me to the park with my now fiancé. If he liked me, why would he do that? We were super close friends. He would pick me up every day and we would drive and talk. He even bought me a stuffed horse I wanted. He'd buy us pizza and we'd spend all sorts of time together. I even remember one night my depression was getting the better of me and I just cried on his shoulder while he pet me. It was very nice, but a bit odd too. He would always try to steal my phone and had the intention of not returning it. When it wasn't available to go places with him, he would get extremely clingy and talk down to me about my cruel boyfriend. The line he crossed was when he came into my house and started chasing me around the kitchen, threatening to take me. I got the idea that he wasn't playing even though we were both smiling. I was extremely uncomfortable. My mom heard him say he was going to take me and carry me out of the house. Mom went mama bear on him and kicked him out of the house. I haven't spoken to him since. Story 17. My best friend of 10 years. We grew up religious. I was actually her big sister or counselor at church when she was in middle school and I was in high school. We were about 3 years apart. We had a falling out for about 2 of those years. I got in a crappy relationship. However, we rekindled our friendship in late 2016. We both grew up into much chiller, less religious people, so we were able to get along again. Or so I thought. In 2017, she invited me to go to Vegas with her and her cousins for her birthday. At first, everything was fine. We drove down to Vegas, just the 2 of us. We got pancakes together, rode the rides in the top of the stratosphere, and I let her know I was going to be her party mom. I had a new boyfriend who was chill enough to be cool with me going to Vegas, and I really didn't want to get hammered and be stupid anyway, so I was totally okay with being the responsible one. She said that she needed the protection anyway, so I assumed it was going to be a good time. I realized she was a different person when I heard her doing stuff with her cousin in the bathroom before we took off to the strip. She then proceeded to ditch me several times at the casinos and clubs to try to score more substances from wealthy, single dudes, therefore leaving me to be pestered by Vegas creeps. I found myself walking down the strip alone at 3 a.m. back to my hotel. It was getting so bad that I called my boyfriend just so that if anything happened, I would have someone on the other line who would know where I was or what occurred. The next morning at 9 a.m., she had just arrived and was still wired from the stuff. I'd barely slept. She wasn't responding to any of my text messages all night, and I was super worried or guilty that something happened to her. She told me this long story about how her and cousins ended up at the hotel of one of the rich dudes from the club. Rich dude demanded intimacy in exchange for substance. When they both refused, it made the rich dude angry, so he tried to take it from the cousin by force. They ran and stole about $300 from him. They were chased down and nearly caught by this dude, but got away because they had a really helpful cab driver. She told me this entire story with joy and excitement, and not with the anxiety that I had just listening to it. The entire story just made me realize that me and this girl had nothing in common at all. There was no past or present that could even bring us together. I just looked her up and, oddly, or is this typical, she's still extremely devout or committed to the church we grew up in. She's a youth leader. Story 18. I had a friend who came out of the closet, and I was the second person he told. At least that's what he told me. He really appreciated how accepting I was and so happy I still wanted to be his friend. I was pretty honored that I was one of the first people he told and felt we became even closer friends after this. Then he started to change. A lot. His personality suddenly seemed to revolve around the fact that he was not straight, and that became a prominent part of his personality. That was fine and didn't bother me until he started being really inappropriate in the way he would talk and act around us friends. And he seemingly tried pushing our boundaries at every chance he got to see how much we could handle. Example, he would be descriptive in what kinds of things turned him on. It seemed a lot of the times that he enjoyed making people feel uncomfortable by doing this. The moment he really crossed the line was one time the two of us were in a friend's apartment alone, waiting for said friend to get back from somewhere. He started asking me what my thing looked like. I told him to stop with that crap. I didn't want to talk about my thing, but he insisted. Smirking, he kept at the color part of it, asking me if it was pink. I told him to knock it off and that if he kept it up, I didn't want anything to do with him. So he just smiles and says, "You must be pink, Mr. Pink Eye." Did I see? I told him to take off and left with them calling me Mr. Pink Eye all the way out. Then he told people we weren't friends anymore because I was a hater who hated people like him. I lost a couple friends due to that as well. Story 19. Yes, one time we were out at the bar and he got super hammered, and for no reason at all, he picked up a bar stool and chucked it at me. I was then kicked out. As if that didn't do enough, upon last call when everyone went outside, he was sitting on these hardcore guys' car hoods. I told him to get off of it because they were coming out, and he didn't, so I started to leave. The guys saw me talking to him, jumped him, and then came after me. When they came after me, he started running away, and that's when they fired at him. I slammed my door and took neighborhood streets to get home without being possibly followed. I got home, locked my doors, and told my brother what had just happened. Right when I was done telling him, this massive pounding began on my front door. Great. The gangster dudes followed me home. Nope, it was my friend. Instead of running to his house, which was 2 blocks from the bar, he ran to my house, easily 10 blocks away, putting me and my brother in danger. He crossed the line and we had to have the talk the next day when he sobered up. Story 20. Years ago, when we were all still teenagers, a very close friend of mine spiked my drink at a party. He then proceeded to kiss me and take me away from the party to another secluded room to continue and try to kiss me. I was completely out of it by this point and didn't have any idea what was going on. Thankfully, 2 friends noticed I was gone and got him away from me, but that didn't stop him trying to come back into the room later when I was totally passed out, to do God knows what. I'm glad my friends were there, so nothing worse happened. The next morning, I completely lost it and screamed at him, ending the friendship. When I told my boyfriend, who hadn't been at the party, what happened, he broke up with me. This was years ago, so we didn't think of it the way you would now. He just thought I cheated on him. I eventually made up with a friend because I thought my entire friend group felt I was some girl that was tearing the group apart. It's only now, years later, that they've told me they would have never stayed friends with this guy if I hadn't made the effort to refriend him, which is something I regret now. I'm always uncomfortable around this guy and I don't like to be alone with him. It's been weird, but I guess it's okay. Story 21. It was nothing dramatic, or like a slow realization. There were a number of small but weird incidents. It made me realize she was a toxic person. One event that really stuck out to me was when she ran into my boyfriend at a club one night. I'd known he would be out that night, and he also texted me about their encounter the next morning. Said he ran into my friend and her girlfriends and brought them a round of drinks. Cool. A few days later, I was hanging out with her. I mentioned something about my boyfriend, and she goes, "I have something I need to tell you. When I ran into him at the club the other night, he cheated on you." I was shocked and rendered speechless for a few seconds, and she shouts, "Oh my God, don't cry." And I wasn't even close to crying. Then I ask her, "What do you mean? You saw him go home with someone?" She says no. Did she see him kiss someone? No. Did she touch a girl inappropriately? What? She said she saw him talking and laughing with her girlfriends. Apparently that's cheating. I kind of laughed and dismissed her, in which she told me off for being in denial. It was like she wanted me to be upset about a non-issue, then got upset that I wasn't upset. It was a whole bunch of toxic behaviors like this that made me cut contact with her. Story 22. I excitedly told my friend about this date I'd been going on. It's the first time I did that because I actually thought it might become something serious. The talking went on and she tried to be funny by asking how I'd know anything about intimacy. I don't really talk about flings to anyone. And when I told her that, actually, I'm not pure since a long time, she said that the only way that could be true is if I'd slept with my brother. So I told her that she's not funny at all and got a bit snappy. However, she didn't apologize, so I will never forgive her for that. All she did was try and insist it's just a joke and I'm being unreasonable, so I told her that, well, she wouldn't be thrilled either if I made a joke about whatever STD she's caught now again. She was less than happy about that. Had it coming, though. Story 23. I had known this person for 20 or so years. He was a part of our extended family. Her brother ended up marrying my sister-in-law. They'd lost both of their parents, and her family was her family. She came to every holiday dinner and birthday party. The kids loved her like she was an aunt to them. 3 years ago, after my husband had lost both of his grandfathers in the span of 3 months, we were going through a rough patch. My husband had closed himself off and her marriage was struggling. During this time, my friend decided to make her move. They carried on a physical affair that lasted 3 months and an emotional affair that lasted 2 years. Shortly after the start of the physical relationship, she abruptly stopped talking to me and blocked me in all social networks. I had a gut feeling, but I could never confirm anything until about a year ago. Since no one in our family knows the situation, she still loved and welcomed to family gatherings. I haven't been to a function with my husband's side of the family in 3 years, and they all believe I'm a schmuck for staying away. Story 24. My really close friend since grade school was my roommate through college all 4 years. There was this girl I met freshman year who I had the biggest crush on. We would hang out all the time and visit each other over breaks. She always had a boyfriend or was talking to some other guy, but we always cared for each other. She just wanted to be friends, and I accepted that. But it felt like I loved her, so I wanted to keep my hopes up. Fast forward senior year, and she's dating her ex again, which I told her was a very bad idea. But one of the bar crawls at her college who ended up talking about her dating her ex, and I can't remember the whole conversation, but we were basically not happy with each other. Well, she ends up meeting with my best friend, and they start making out, which really hurts to see. And later I found out that they went back to our room and had intimacy with each other. It hurt so much because my best friend knew how I felt about her, and he promised he would never do something with her. Also, she was such a morally right person I felt I could trust, but she cheats on her boyfriend and I can't trust her now. I can't trust my best friend the same way either. It hurts imagining them having intimacy, and not at any point did they think this would hurt the people around them. Next day, she said she was so sorry because she knew how I felt about her and how much that hurt me. I responded with, "Do me a favor. Don't ever talk to me again." I haven't talked to her since, and I'm still trying to salvage my friendship with my best friend. On a happy note, since I'm not focusing on her so much anymore, I ended up meeting a very beautiful woman and we've hit it off. I'm definitely happy with her in my life now. I can't say the same for the girl I had a crush on since she cheated on our boyfriend. Sure, he might have been a schmuck, but he was a good guy and people liked him, so not many people liked her after that whole cheating thing. Story 25. Apparently, I was the one to cross the line when I was defending a mutual friend. Little backstory to this. Went down the summer before my senior year. Our mutual friend had been online dating this guy. I didn't know much about him. The only interaction I had with him was a message indicating who I was and a playful, "You break her heart, I break your face." I got a very aggressive response back. Red flag goes up, but being young and stupid, I didn't say anything more about him to her other than he didn't seem like all that good of a guy. A few weeks before school started, I got weird messages from our private FB chat and a group chat that I shared with my friend and mutual friend. Things like, "This isn't a game anymore." Her mom had found out about this relationship and flew off her handle. This is when I learned that this guy was 22 to 23. Our mutual friend was 16. Obviously not good. Created a separate group chat from the first one, excluding our mutual friends because that was only her mom that was going to be talking. Some other friends started fighting with her mom about this, saying she had no right to go through her daughter's phone and message her friends cryptic messages. I was for this. Then I get a phone call from a mutual friend, sobbing her head off that their fighting was only making things worse. Could I please tell them to back off? I did, and they immediately attacked me. My best friend since kindergarten messaged me in a group chat, unloading all of this crap. Some stuff that had happened years ago and stuff that happened this year, saying I never defended her like I was doing with mutual friend. that I was obviously favoring her in my friendships, that at her going away party, she was moving in October, that after our mutual friend had left, I was off to myself and everyone else was still hanging out. I was off by myself, yes, but that was because I was still grieving the loss of a family friend, someone that I had looked up to. It carried on for 3 days. I sent the replies at night because I didn't want my mom asking why I was crying. It seemed like everything was crashing down around this happy group, because it was. Our mutual friend was AWOL because her mom had forbidden any kind of social media contact or texts. Fun fact, when her mom called me, she had called all of us. Since I was the only one that didn't fight her, I was the only friend that our mutual friend was allowed to talk to and was liked. The others, her mom still barely tolerates, and it's been like 4 years. The best friend, with her boyfriend at her on, I'm sure he was part of the issue, was yelling about me being a crappy best friend because I was trying to help my other best friend. I'd nearly ended myself in those 3 days. I was so wrung out emotionally and mentally, and I'd been almost pushed to a breaking point. There was never an obvious break. I don't remember the outcome of the messages and can't check because I deleted them because even a year later, I was rereading them. But she went to school with me, we hung out and acted like everything was normal. She moved, and by January, we weren't talking over FB anymore. She occasionally pops up now and then. We actually had gone out for dinner together a couple of weeks ago to see each other and to meet her son. It was nice, but I felt like there was something above her head the whole time. I don't know if I'll ever be able to discuss that fight with her. I don't know. Sorry for rambling. I don't even know if I stuck to the question correctly. This is just something that I still think about for years later and keeps me up at night. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.